America is extremely reliable when it comes to giving you stories about weirdos doing atrocious things. There's so many stories like that. You read these stories in the news. Some woman leaves her daughter without food for days. The cops find the little girl. She's covered in bug bites and feces, and she's malnourished almost to the point of death. This stuff happens in America all the time. All the time. In fact, I want to show you guys a police body cam video that I saw last night of a woman murdering two police officers. And she was telling people that a network of pedophiles were coming after her daughter. She said, you know, in America, you have this obsession nowadays with Jeffrey Epstein and the network of pedophiles. And what's amazing to me, I'm not saying that something like that doesn't exist. Okay, I believe that something like that does exist. I'm not denying it. But one thing that I've realized over the years is that you have these right-wing Americans, and they tend to be Christian. I've seen Catholics who are like this, but I've also seen American Protestants / evangelicals who are this way as well. But they start talking about Jeffrey Epstein and the pedophiles, and they talk about, oh, there's a pedophile network, and you have these Catholics who come along and they say, oh, there's a network of pedophiles led by Jeffrey Epstein, and then they tell me about how proud they are for being members of the Vatican. You do realize that you're a member of an institution that has protected literally thousands of pedophiles. You know that, right? I mean, you're here telling me about Jeffrey Epstein pimping girls out because their parents want to make money off their daughters, thinking that their daughters can make a lot of money as a model, when in reality Jeffrey Epstein was just a pimp. You're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, but then you're telling me about the Vatican, about how you're a proud Catholic. You're a proud member of an institution that has been defending pedophiles for literal decades, and the Vatican makes Jeffrey Epstein look like a choir boy. But you're going to tell me about pedophiles running America, but you're a member of the Vatican. You believe that the Vatican was an institution founded by Jesus, when the reality is that the Vatican has become an acolyte for the Antichrist and for Sodom, and they're literally defending pedos. And don't give me this bullshit. I've seen Catholics try to bullshit me with this line when they say, I've had Catholics tell me this before. I've been a Catholic my entire life. I've never once seen a pedophile priest, never once seen a predator pervert priest. Oh, you've never seen that before? You know that's a bullshit argument, right? Because I have. So if you never seeing a predator priest in your life is evidence that there isn't a problem with pedophile priests, well, then me coming out and saying I have seen predator priests is evidence that there is a problem in the Vatican. So this is why anecdotal evidence by itself doesn't work as evidence. That's the reason why it doesn't fully work as evidence. It can be a piece of evidence, but you can't use anecdotal evidence to determine the full picture of something. That's just not how it works. But you have these people who will say, I've never seen that in my entire life. Hoo, hoo, hoo. And when someone tells me something like that, I have found the enabler. It's like when someone comes over and says, this is not a racist organization. I've been a member of this organization my entire life. I've never once met a racist. You've just found the racist. If someone comes up to me and says, I hate police officers, blah, 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 because cops are A, B, and C, I just found the criminal. I just found him. People will try to convince you that a bad thing doesn't exist because they are a part of that bad thing, and they don't want other people noticing that. You see this all the time. All the time you see this bullshit. I remember years ago I interviewed this Austrian nationalist by the name of Martin Zellner. It's still up on YouTube. You can watch it. And I remember asking Mr. Zellner, I said, why is it that so many people in your movement hate Jews? And I gave him a quote from one of their ideologues in the Austrian and the European far right. I think his name is Guillaume Faye. He's a French right-wing philosopher. And I put a quote from Guillaume Faye where he talks about how the reason why there's all these migrants in Europe is because of the Jewish disease. He describes the Jewish mindset as a disease that has infected Europe. And I said, how come you follow this Guillaume Faye guy when he says that the Jewish mentality that has infected Europe is like a disease? Could you elaborate more on that? And Martin Zellner proceeded to tell me that, oh, there's no anti-Semitism in the movement. I don't support anti-Semitism. But then you will see Martin Zellner's articles talking about how there's a problem with philo-Semitism in Europe, and how there's a problem with people, how in Europe Jews have more rights than the white man in Europe. And when you hear that sort of talk, you know that that's Nazi talking. That's Nazi speak. That's how Nazis talk. So that is the reality, is that people will tell you that a bad thing doesn't exist because they are a member of that bad thing, and they are by trying to convince you that that bad thing doesn't exist, they're actually advancing their cause. Because the biggest lie that the devil can tell you, the most effective lie that the devil can convince you of that helps the devil, is that he does not exist. That is the reality. So when a Catholic comes over and says, "I've never once seen a predator priest in my life," I've just met the person who knows damn well that there is a problem, and he's trying to hide it. And because the reason why he's hiding it is because he's defending the institution that he has been so dedicated to. And that's what you see all the time. But I have been to many different Catholic churches, and I have seen priests who I went to one church and the priest was a predator. I went to another church, the priest was a predator. I went to another church, and the deacon was a pedophile, a confirmed pedophile. I'm not just saying that out of speculation. I mean, it was confirmed that he was a pedophile, that he touched more than one young boy. And then it turned out that the head priest of the church was protecting him for years, literally covering him up. Parents would go to the priest and say, the deacon is a pedophile. And the priest would say, his name was Father Christopher Phillips, if you want to look him up. The priest would say, I'll look into it, guys. And then he wouldn't do a damn thing about it because he was covering up for it. So that's the type of bullshit that you see all the time.